Hey guys, Chris here, and I'm Ukrainian Canadian. Today is June 6th, 2025, and let's get to the news and updates happening in Ukraine and Russia, shall we? Boy, was it a terrible week for the Russians, and that means it was a good week for all of us, those who support Ukraine and its fight against Russia. A terrible and explosive week for Putin. So we already saw what happened last weekend with Operation Spiderweb, where Ukraine effectively wiped out over 30% of Russia's strategic aviation. Planes and bombers that Russia will simply never be able to replace again or repair. Kerch Bridge was attacked successfully and has become weakened as a result of that. We saw the images that were shared by the Ukrainian Secret Service, them planting over 1,100 kilos of explosives at the bottom of the bridge and detonating it. Now, the extent of the damage is unknown, but it definitely severely weakened the structure itself, meaning that the Russians can't be moving heavy trucks or as many trucks as they would like to through the bridge. So again, really weakening that logistical connection between Crimea and mainland Russia. And obviously last night, the Ukrainians continued with their long-range drone attacks over different Russian airfields in Bryansk, in Saratov, in Ryazan Oblast, and they also managed to destroy 2 Iskander ballistic missile launchers in Bryansk as well yesterday, and also destroy an Mi-8 helicopter, an Mi-35 helicopter last night when they attacked the Bryansk airfield. And this is one of the images of the Bryansk airfield that I share with you guys over YouTube on YouTube community last night. And this is the Engels airfield, and apparently this is the oil depot at the Engels airfield that is burning, fully engulfed in flames. So again, will complicate the refueling of their airplanes, trucks, etc. So again, Ukraine is displaying that it has the cards, it can fight Russia symmetrically, and also think outside of the box with Operation Spiderweb. You guys probably saw all the different coverages and analysis, so I'm not going to say anything more about it, except that this is only something that the Ukrainians are capable of conducting. And they took over 18 months to plan it out because this is such a complicated, logistically speaking, mission, sabotage mission. It really proves that only Ukraine is capable of doing such things and is not afraid of attacking and destroying the nuclear triad of Russia, right? Again, another red line that was crossed. And unfortunately, yes, it was expected that the Russians would strike back at attacking civilian infrastructure, but either way, Russia would have been doing that, whether Ukraine would have conducted Operation Spiderweb or not. So again, I need to highlight the fact that Ukraine has nothing to lose right now because it's fighting an existential fight against Russia, and there's going to be plenty more of these operations on Russian territory. Again, Russia is a bear with decaying teeth that is starting to be unable to feed itself. And that's really important. These missions, when you multiply that over and over and over, are going to weaken Russia to such a level that it's not going to be able to conduct its military operations in Ukraine anymore. But that will take time. This is something that unfortunately will take time. So the other news is, of course, Trump, and he's outraged that Ukraine went for this massive display of strength against Russia. And he said that Zelensky or somebody within his administration mentioned that he feels like Zelensky didn't give the president of the United States a heads up to say he's going to do a deep strike into strategic forces of Russia, which is going up the escalatory ladder as quickly as you can on the day before your meeting in Turkey. And, you know, what I have to say about this is that this is just a pathetic display of weakness by Trump. Apparently, he also said that that was a very, again, not the exact words, but he thought it was really cool that Ukraine did this, but he was also angry that Ukraine went with it without telling Trump. Well, guess why Ukraine didn't tell you? Because likely you would have said no, and then you would have shared the news with your best buddy, Putin. So obviously Zelensky would have never done that. And if there were already leaks happening under the Biden administration, because Ukraine was sharing intel and plans of its operation, and guess what? Then leaks started appearing in open forums on Discord channels about the Ukrainian plans of attack, etc. So, you know, even under Biden, there were leaks. Why would Ukraine be sharing intel, extremely sensitive intel, to the White House and the Americans? It's just complete lunacy. And so, again, overall, this is just displaying a pathetic position by Trump of weakness. He's just weak. And he admits that he's powerless, from ending this war in 24 hours to just let them fight. Because also he met with Chancellor of Germany, Merz, yesterday. And, when he was asked about the war in Ukraine, what he thinks about what's going on right now, he said, sometimes, and this is me speaking, maybe in a negative sense, you see two young children fighting like crazy. They hate each other and are fighting in the park, and you try to pull them apart. They don't want to be pulled. Sometimes it's just better of letting them fight for a while and then pulling them apart. So he's basically admitting that as the adult in the room, Trump portrays himself as the adult in the room, he can't resolve a conflict between children. And again, it's a display of an incapable parent that would rather allow their kids to fight rather than stopping the fight right before things get ugly. Only incapable parents do that. And again, the other thing I want to highlight here is that the only winner from this entire story is China. Trump is displaying his indecisiveness, his incompetence, his weakness, and China's observing all that, and they're taking notes. Not just with the war in Ukraine, but also the economic tariff war between China and the United States. And again, guess who called first? It was Trump and his administration. They folded first. And so China is just feeling that the United States and their power is crumbling very quickly. And that is only bad news for us as the collective West, right? The democratic world. Because countries like China, like Russia, will continue pushing their luck to see how much more they can get away with. And unfortunately, I'm not trying to be offensive here towards my American viewers, but Trump's presidency under Trump 2.0 will be remembered as the pivotal moment in time that the US lost so much power and influence. Someone that promised to make America great again, but did the complete opposite and makes basically the US a laughingstock of the world. And it's not being offensive, it's literally what's going on right now. Whatever Trump is trying to do, it's not working. Everything has been failing. And he's only undermining US power and its geopolitical position on this planet, unfortunately. So let me know what you guys think about his comments. But again, just the analogy of two kids fighting each other is just completely ridiculous. That's the best he could come up with, right? To explain why he's failed to force a peace. And we know why. This is just an imitation. The Russians are imitating peace talks. They're not interested whatsoever. And they have hacked Trump, unfortunately. They've hacked him. They know exactly what to tell Trump. Putin knows what to tell him, what kind of compliments he needs to say. So Trump lets him off. He doesn't want to take decisive action against the Russians, unfortunately. But as we're seeing, things are boiling very quickly in the United States with the rift, the schism that is inevitably going to happen in the Republican Party. Elon Musk and Trump are fighting one another. There's going to be multiple divisions that are going to start forming in the next few months. And this is just the beginning, unfortunately. The United States is really imploding internally right now. And last but not least, it's not all negative because we're also seeing some cracks happening in the Russian economy. And this was from today. There was an article mentioning that Russia is reducing its signing bonuses, which is a telling an indicator of how Russia's economy is doing right now. And it's mentioned at least 5 regions in Russia have recently decreased their one-time signing bonuses for new volunteers. The Volga region of Bashkortostan became the latest, having its payments for new recruits, so cutting it by half. The reason, experts said, is in part due to tighter budgets as regional governments struggle to keep up with the payments amid worsening economic conditions. Other regions that have also cut their signing bonuses include the far northern Yamal-Nenets region and Nizhny Novgorod in Samara, that had the highest sign-up bonus in the country. They dropped the amount to 2.1 million rubles from 3.6 million rubles originally. So a pretty hefty amount was cut. So the money's drying up pretty quickly for the Russians. And that is only because of the intensity that they're pushing at. And, the willful ones are also drying up. The people that were motivated to go and fight for money, they're also drying up. And so you see that Russia is becoming a little bit more desperate in terms of perhaps eventually pushing for mobilization. I think that there's going to be a switch eventually from these very generous sign-up bonuses because they're simply not working anymore. and getting the Russian population to actually engage into forced mobilization by Putin. This could be kind of the last Hail Mary by Putin if he's really desperate. He wants some big results. So we'll have to see how that goes on. And unfortunately, things would be way worse for Russia right now if it wasn't, again, for the United States, because Trump has allowed Putin to buy time by not increasing the sanctions on Russia, by not upping weapon transfers and the selling of weapons to Ukraine, critical weapons that Ukraine needs right now. Trump, again, continues to allow Putin to buy time. I think at this stage, if we had a different administration in the White House, at least Kamala Harris or another Democratic president, I think that the situation would have been different. And as Kamala Harris said in one of the debates, that is true. Putin will eat you for lunch, Trump, and that's exactly what's going on. And the current strategy by Ukraine is unfortunate to continue holding these diplomatic discussions and talks with the United States and Russia, kind of imitating these peace talks while doing everything possible to get rid of their reliance on Washington. And that also goes along with other US partners in Europe. You also see that in Canada. It's all just a game of like, yeah, we'll work with you, we're going to make deals. But in reality, you can bet that Canada, the UK, the European Union, other countries in Asia are definitely now considering how they can get away as much as possible out of this kind of sphere of influence of the United States, because it's completely unreliable. And with relation to Russia, they're buying time through these peace talks, and American partners are buying time to transition out of the US, their US dependence. So that's the current situation. Russia's economy is continuing to show cracks, and eventually it's going to collapse. We don't know when that's going to happen. It could be in a few months, it could be in a year, it could be 2 years, right? But when it's going to happen, it's going to fall like a house of cards, without a doubt. So with all that, guys, I hope you enjoyed this update. Let me know in the comment section what you think about any of the topics that I covered today. Again, if you want to support the Ukraine military, it's absolutely important that you continue donating to the different drone funds or other humanitarian funds that exist that support Ukraine. So please continue doing that. I personally donate to the Ukrainian drone funds, whether it be Rusoriz or Wild Hornets. There's many different effective drone funds that are supplying the Ukraine military, and then they do the rest of the work and eliminate as many Russian occupiers and terrorists as possible. That's the only way that Ukraine is going to win and prevail against this evil Russian regime. With all that, guys, thank you so much. Slava Ukraini!